Hi, welcome to part 1 of our podcast, where we discuss the nominees for the 5th Annual 2020 Awards with our guest, Rich Phelps.
You think you're big time? You're gonna f***ing die big time!
I have been stabbed, shot, poisoned, frozen, hung, electrocuted, and burned.
Oh, really?
I am an immortal.
There's a way you can have your piano back. You want it back?
What happened to your face?
I have AIDS.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The list is an absolute good. The list is life.
Welcome to today's episode of the 2020 Awards. We're going to be looking back at the films from 1993, and our guest today is Rich Phelps.
Hello.
Rich, who are you? Why are you on this show?
I haven't the foggiest idea.
So for those of you who don't know Rich Phelps, which is probably a lot of people, Rich is kind of one of the reasons this whole thing exists. Basically, Rich and I were at a cafe, and we're actually recording today in a different venue, and the former owner of the cafe is our current engineer today. So, hello to Amy.
Hi, Amy. Good to see you.
Hello to you both. Welcome to my hobbit hole.
But Amy was the owner, so it's a little reunion here, and I realized on the way over here tonight that, basically what happened was we were working on our independently separate scripts, and you said, hey, have you ever heard this quote from Matt Damon where he said movies should be judged 10 years after the fact? And I hadn't, and I thought, well, that's an interesting idea, and then I went on to mention it to somebody else, Corby Sears, who then said, let's do an Oscar like that. So that's, Rich, this is all your fault.
It's one of those things I'm completely proud of, even though I had almost nothing to do with it. And giving me any credit at all is it's just silly to the point of, I read the thing, I thought it was a really interesting take on the Oscars in general, and mentioned that to you because it seemed like something that would resonate with you, and obviously it did. So, yeah. Once the 2020 Awards became a thing that I can proudly say I've never missed the live event, and it's impressive. I've mentioned it to you before. I'm a big fan of the endeavor, not just because I played some tiny part in the impetus of it or whatever, but because I think it's genuinely a very cool way to look at movies, to look at how they impact things culturally, how they play later. I just think the whole thing is great.
No, well, thanks. Appreciate it.
Just looking at my list, I want to say first of all that 93 was an amazing year.
Yeah, it was, man. It's like I was kind of shocked at how good this year was.
Yeah, I had no idea. Like at my age, I don't remember exactly. What was I like? About 19, 20 years old.
It'd be about 20 years ago.
Yeah, so I could do some simple math. Well, I should also point out that I have 2 kids, so thinking is not something I do a lot of lately, unless you're talking about diapers or bottles or what the hell were we talking about?
I don't know. We were talking about
the amazing year that 1993 was. Yeah, so I went ahead and looked at the list of just everything that came out that year, and I once I got to like the 7th title that I remember loving, I thought, okay, this is crazy. This was an amazing year, and in fact, in doing a little bit of research, I read Roger Ebert's like top 10 flicks of the year, something like that. He called 1993 Annus Mirabilis, or a year of marvels. He had twice as many 4-star rated films in that year than he had in 1992 on his list. He said he just was handing out 4-star reviews. Now, whether or not you love all of Roger Ebert's reviews, I happen to like.
Do you have that list with you?
No. I just wrote down that quote because I thought it was fascinating that even at the time he was calling it, a year of marvels. I remember, I think his top pick was Schindler's.
Right. So why don't we start with Best Adapted Screenplay?
All right.
The nominees are Age of Innocence, Carlito's Way, In the Name of the Father, The Remains of the Day, and Schindler's List. Anything you feel that should be on this list that's not?
I would say I have 2 that I responded to that I thought were really well written. Searching for Bobby Fischer.
Yes.
And What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, I'm just going to say it right now. Searching for Bobby Fischer, I'm going to name that in every category we're about to go through.
I'm with you.
I just watched it last month again, and that movie is so amazing, and the script is one of the reasons.
100%.
It's just freaking unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely one of my favorite movies of the year.
Yeah,
just in every way possible. You're right. As we go down the list of categories, I'm sure it's going to be mentioned a ton. Love that movie. It's probably one of those rare movies that I've seen over a dozen times.
Yeah,
and and that's probably lowballing it so that I don't seem like a total.
Let's dive into that real quick. What is it about that movie that resonates with you?
Well, gosh, there are a bunch of things. I respond to movies, fathers and sons, man. That's part of it. Mm-hmm. We've talked about that before. It's kind of it's almost an inside joke just to say fathers and sons. Right. But there's something about that relationship, the Joe Mantegna relationship with his son, and his. I don't know if it boils down to that thing where you and. This is especially interesting to talk about now because I haven't talked about the film since I became a father.
Yeah.
But that idea that he could see something in his son that he could instantly or maybe not even instantly, but he could come to realize was special, and then help him nurture that without. Well, it's the path that he muddles through as a father. At first, maybe pushing him too hard, being forced to sort of back off, and getting that his wife stepping in and sort of that relationship. So. All that I thought was amazing. There's something special about that kid and his gift. Mm-hmm. And I tend to enjoy movies where somebody finds out that they're they have a talent for something, especially something that's a little bit. It's not like he can just run with a ball, like we see it all the time in movies or what have you. Or he's just a genius. Like he just knows everything. Like lots of stuff has been done. Chess maybe. Hasn't been done as much, but I'm sure it's just sort of you could insert a lot of different things in that role. But
I don't feel like I have that father-son need or whatever that is that a lot of my guy friends do. Like my dad, never pushed me. I had a good relationship with my dad, and so, it's weird to me that I think there's something else. I asked you because I had a feeling you were going to say that, and I'm trying to figure out. What it is, because I don't think that's what it is. I think there's something else in that movie, and I haven't been able to put my finger on it. I was honestly hoping that you were going to have the answer to it.
Give you the golden ticket.
Yeah.
When I say fathers and sons, it's almost that's not exactly what I mean. There's a family dynamic that I respond to. There's something about. See, and even that's not the right word because you can find the same thing with relationship movies. Just it's something about people that really care about each other. Mm-hmm. So when I say fathers and sons, I'm talking about a much larger concept.
Yeah.
When I think about Bobby Fischer, it's about that mentor relationship that they had the two sort of diametrically opposed mentors who were sort of giving him advice. And the amazing thing about those relationships are how both were crucial to sort of molding him. It wasn't like picking one over the other. His father taking him on all the trips and his mother encouraging he still played baseball and sort of that all those influences getting him to a place where he could be, a better person or happy person or whatever it may be. And that is part of that. When I say fathers and sons, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I totally get what you're talking about because I do think, when I think of that movie, the one scene that, it's the one line that comes back to me every single time, and I mentioned it on another episode, but it's when they go to the parent-teacher conference.
Yeah.
And the teacher starts saying, well, this little chess thing that he does, and Mantegna gets really defensive, and he's just like, chess thing, this little chess thing. He'll be better. What does he say? He says he's better at this than anything I have ever done in my life, or something along those lines. And it's that sort of finding that thing that someone can do and just encouraging it and letting that person blossom.
And what you're describing isn't even so much encouraging it. he said that he was better at this chess thing than anything she would ever be
right
in her life. I mean, he was willing to stand there and say, like, you don't understand what I see. It's not even what I see in him. It's what's there.
Yeah.
Like, to him, and that was an absolute fact.
Right.
And therefore, everything else was secondary too. And I don't remember at what point in the movie that took place. Like, because I feel like there was a real arc with the father character.
It's about the midpoint.
Okay, so he was probably still sort of taking him on the road a lot, and there was like there was kind of
that's exactly what happens. She brings it up because he hasn't been in class a lot, and you've been taking him out to like DC and all these places,
and all he ever talks about in class are the hotels.
Exactly. He's not seeing any of the city.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I think that was an important way to understand just how seriously the father took the whole thing, and maybe why he was going a little bit off the deep end with it.
Right.
But still, like, what's not to love about seeing someone stand up and say that? Like, can you imagine anyone defending you with that much just sort of ferocity? And that's great stuff.
Yeah. All right. I have a feeling we could talk about this all night.
No, we could.
So, your other choice you mentioned was Gilbert Grape?
Yeah.
What about that one?
Well, I think for me that was, again, it's family. What it must have been like to have the Leo character as your brother.
Right.
You know, the climbing the tower, and sort of now the whole town has to come to a stop while they try to get him down, and you hope that he doesn't kill himself in the process. And it, like that, I think there were a lot of things about that. And you know, when we talked about fathers and sons, like I think I had a great and still have a great relationship with my dad. Like I don't think that I see those relationships as anything that's sort of particularly lacking. And it's the same thing with this. Like I've got an older brother that I'm not that close to, but I look at that relationship with the two brothers, or how Gilbert saw just his whole family. He was so embarrassed by his mother, and sort of she was the laughing stock of the town, and all he wanted to do was just sort of like bury his head and not be a part of it. But he was a part of it. Like he wasn't going anywhere, and even though he desperately wanted to. And for him, it was this outside influence. This little bird sort of flew into his life, Juliette Lewis, and allowed him to sort of, I don't know, I think there was something about the Airstream and just sort of that dream of his to sort of get out of this trap he was in. And then when it came down to it, at the end of the day, he wasn't going to let his mother be a laughingstock after, spoiler alert. Do we have to worry about spoilers with 20-year-olds?
No.
So there was something about that, like that, his own realization that these people, this is his family, and he cares about them, and running away from them, like that's not going to happen. In fact, I'm going to go the extra mile to sort of defend my mother, and we're just not going to let anybody see her after she passes away. Like there are some themes there that I sort of, that loyalty theme that even when it's this frustrating thing that you can spend most of your time not wanting to be remotely a part of, when it comes down to it, you believe in it and you love these people. And best adapted. So yeah, those two, Bobby Fischer and Gilbert Grape.
Right. So if you could pick a winner from this year, I don't want you to necessarily go by what was nominated, but in your heart, Rich, best adapted screenplay of 1993 goes to
Searching for Bobby Fischer.
Nice, good call.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the list here of the nominated pictures, and then I'm looking at the two that I mentioned, and I got to say, like, that's the one that I'm the most impressed with.
I don't mean to belittle you at all.
Oh, but you are. Even in the way you're looking at me.
Mr. Waste, I think perhaps...
You want to know how good he is? I'll tell you how good he is. He is better at this than I have ever been at anything in my life. He is better at this than you'll ever be at anything. My son has a gift. He has a gift, and once you acknowledge that, then maybe we'll have something to talk about.
All right, we're moving on to Best Original Screenplay. This year's nominees are Groundhog Day, Philadelphia, The Piano, True Romance, and Sleepless in Seattle. So anything that's missing from that list that you would have liked to have seen on there?
Absolutely. And in a rare occurrence, one that was originally nominated, Dave.
I completely agree with you. I'm a little disappointed. We actually did a great podcast about Dave that the digital gremlins ate up.
Oh, wow.
So unfortunately that doesn't exist anywhere. But I love Dave. Dave's fantastic.
What a good movie.
And very disappointed that it's not on here. So.
I'm actually really impressed that it was originally nominated, though.
I know.
Because it's not the type of movie that you would expect to see.
But again, comedies, like, wow, that looks easy.
Right. Well, if it's a well-made comedy, that's the problem.
So it's like, somebody woke up and made this movie and then went to bed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the same one I was going to throw out there. Dave is great.
Yeah, my other choice, I kind of was going basically two choices on everything, and I could not walk away from Groundhog Day, even though it was nominated. And I would love to throw some curveball at you. Groundhog Day, amazing.
It's apparently everybody's favorite movie.
It's up there.
It's fantastic.
There are only a handful of movies that you can really legitimately never stop watching, that you can watch once or twice a year for your entire life. And strangely, ironically
it's Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day works great for that. Yeah. I mean, it's just so watchable, so enjoyable.
Yeah.
And you have to sit back and remember that somebody had to write that. Somebody had to come up with that. And I mean, especially with something like as an editor, professional editor, looking at just sort of structurally how they have to pull that off, both in the storytelling and the editing of a picture like that. Like, just an amazing feat that movie isn't terribly confusing or horribly boring, or, I mean, you name it.
I've said it before, there's so many ways you could have screwed that movie up.
Yeah.
And the fact that it is rewatchable is kind of amazing.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
So those are my two, Dave and Groundhog Day.
And Dave, let's just talk about Dave a little bit. Dave, if you haven't seen it, it's the story of the president who's kind of a dick.
Yeah.
Is basically banging an intern.
Kind of a dick. Yeah.
He's banging an intern, and he has a heart attack and goes into a coma, so they find a guy that looks exactly like him to come in and basically just show up and do public appearances.
Right.
But the guy who takes over is the nicest guy in the world, and becomes determined to kind of get America back on its feet and get the economy rolling again, and ends up sort of like taking power and doing a whole bunch of good for the country. And it's a great movie. It's a really fantastic film if you haven't seen it.
It is written by Gary Ross. If we're talking about screenplay, we should definitely throw his name out there. It's sort of this everyman character who gets thrown into this crazy situation where I don't remember. I remember there were scenes where he sort of was doing the presidential thing, and there was an antagonist, Frank Langella, I think, plays.
Frank Langella, who's great in it.
No, amazing in it.
He's the White House chief of staff.
Yeah.
And so he thinks he's calling the shots now.
Yeah, he thinks he's the power behind the throne, and sort of thinks that having this patsy, taking the place of the president's going to be the perfect thing, because he won't even have to deal with the president's hyper ego. He can sort of run the show, and then he loses control of it. And then there's the Sigourney Weaver plays the first lady, and she's amazing, because she's at the beginning of the film, she doesn't even really realize that this guy's an imposter until he looks at her legs. They're in the car,
right.
And she, he
it's
catches
like, what's up with that?
Yeah,
wait when are you looking at me?
He hasn't looked at me that way, and so she doesn't have a lot to do in the movie, but there's a great scene where they sort of get out of the White House one night and get pulled over, and they have to. He convinces the cops that they're both impersonators. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And in that they do some sort of a vaudeville act, and they end up standing on the streets singing.
Right.
And I don't know if Sigourney Weaver can sing in real life, but I know that in that movie she made it as though she cannot sing at all, but she went for it, man.
Yeah.
Just great movie. I mean, just every reason to love all those characters, and it's just really well written.
Well, you mentioned that scene where they sneak out. Another great running theme that's through the whole film, that testament to the script, is Dave, who is the surrogate president.
Mm-hmm.
His job is he works at an employment office.
Sure. Yeah.
And so his whole career is to take care of people, to make sure they're working and basically put food on their table. Well, there's like 3 or 4 scenes in the movie where he is literally feeding somebody, in the sense that
Right.
He's making them sandwiches.
The fancy sandwich. He's got a sandwich that he loves.
He goes out on this date with the first lady, and he brings a picnic. Charles Grodin, who's his accountant, comes in to look at the books, and he's like, "Are you hungry? Here, let me order you something from the kitchen." The scene with Ving Rhames, who plays this Secret Service guy, he feeds him, like he makes him the sandwich, and so it's like that's such a beautiful thematic and a visual idea of, you know, basically his job is to feed people, and that's what he does through the whole film.
Yeah, you know, it's more than we've all read the Save the Cat or talked about that, you know, having that moment for your character up front, letting everybody have a reason to like that character. You're right. In that movie, he sort of embodies that through the entire movie, even up to and including the way he chooses to inhabit the role as president. I think I can make things better. I think I can make a difference.
Right.
You know, I remember you mentioned Ving Rhames. I'd kind of forgotten about that character.
Oh my God, that one scene with them?
With the bullet? Yeah. Like, so I guess you'd have to take a bullet for me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that just, when he comes, they both sort of, I think, come to that realization that...
Right.
That as, you know, the Secret Service agent tasked with guarding the president, he now would have to take a bullet for the imposter.
Yeah.
Which comes full circle, I think. By the end of the movie, you realize that maybe that's the guy he'd rather take a bullet for.
Right. Well, at first he's sort of like, I guess I would kind of have to. And then by the end of the movie, it's such a great moment where he's saying goodbye to him and he's like, I would take a bullet for you. That's beautiful. Yeah. It's a beautiful movie.
Yeah, good one.
So, your pick for Best Original Screenplay in 93?
Groundhog Day.
Yeah. Gotcha. No surprise.
I wish, like I said, I wish I could be more sort of avant-garde about it, but man, so well done.
Yeah.
I was in the Virgin Islands once. I met a girl. We ate lobster, drank pina coladas. At sunset, we made love like sea otters. That was a pretty good day. Why couldn't I get that day over and over?
So that brings us to Best Supporting Actress. The nominees this year are Darlene Cates for What's Eating Gilbert Grape, Holly Hunter in The Firm, Anna Paquin in The Piano, Rosie Perez in Fearless, and Emma Thompson in The Name of the Father. Anybody you would like to have seen on the list?
I think I would go with Joan Allen from Bobby Fischer.
Yep.
Loved that character. Loved the way she played it. Actually wrote down Sherilyn Fenn for Boxing Helena.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like sort of a bizarre one, but I don't know that it was the kind of role that really could have received that much acclaim. But like, it was an impressive performance in kind of a demandingly weird role. People might not even know what that movie is, but that was essentially a movie about this guy who was in love with this woman, and he was a surgeon, and he basically kidnaps her and begins removing her limbs.
Right.
And that's what the movie's about. It's the strangest thing you've ever heard of.
And it's so she can't get away from it.
Yeah. And like literally taking off a leg here, a leg there, an arm there, and so she's this, not only a captive, and he's doing it in it's not a slasher movie or anything like that.
He's doing it in a very loving way.
In a humane way, I guess. I don't know, it's not Human Centipede, but but it's this bizarro movie again, I haven't seen it in forever, but I really remember, maybe it was just the situation, like if I looked at, not that many people have looked at me with that sort of, I'd like to kidnap him and start dismembering him right away. But if that ever happened, I don't think I'd handle it as well as she did.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were the two. Joan Allen, though, is sort of, even, I'll skip right to it. She'd get my vote.
She's your pick, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the one person that I wish was on this list was, going back to your other script pick, Eating Gilbert Grape, was Mary Steenburgen.
Yeah, he had the affair with her. Yeah.
She was great.
Yeah, she was really good. It's kind of funny, you talk about comedy and how if it's done well, it looks so easy and you sort of can dismiss it.
Yeah.
I think that happens sometimes with the supporting actors as well.
I think it happens with all acting.
Well, probably, you're right.
It's like if it isn't somebody doing an accent, it's not, anything that doesn't draw attention to itself seems like it's effortless, and so it's like, well, why would that?
Which is
really,
exactly,
it's the opposite.
That's exactly what I was talking about with the DiCaprio playing that character.
Yeah.
Like that, what bit of acting is going to draw more attention than that. But then there's a Mary Steenburgen who's, you know, you're absolutely right about the role she played in that film and what she had to deal with, sort of losing the boy toy and, you know, dealing with her own issues, her age, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I should have let him win one. I gave him every opportunity.
He wasn't trying to win.
Oh, no? Come on, Bonnie.
It doesn't matter.
No, say what you mean.
You don't get it? Doesn't want to beat his daddy.
That brings us to our next category, which is Best Supporting Actor. And the nominees are Leo. I call him Leo because we're so close. What the hell?
I've called him Leo a couple times in this podcast because same reason.
So Leonardo DiCaprio for What's Eating Gilbert Grape, Ray Fiennes for Schindler's List, Ben Kingsley for Schindler's List, Sean Penn for Carlito's Way, and Pete Postlethwaite in The Name of the Father. Now, I think a role that was overlooked was actually Gene Hackman in The Firm.
Oh, okay.
You know, first of all, it's Gene Hackman, so he's always good.
Yeah.
But, again, a movie that 20 years ago, I kind of dismissed it, watched it again. It was not that bad. It's not great, but, like, Hackman's character is so good in that movie because he's basically a projection of what Tom Cruise is going to become in the future.
Evil lawyer guy? I honestly don't
So
remember.
basically the concept is the law firm is a mafia law firm.
Yeah, they're sort of like Illuminati type of...
Yeah, and once you get in, you don't get out. Right. And, like, you know, Cruise's house is bugged and all this stuff.
Right, yeah.
And Hackman is basically the guy who's been there for 30 years. So he's, you know, and you get the impression that he probably started out just like Cruise, and now this is where Cruise is going to be going. But he's fantastic in it. And he's
who was above Hackman? Who was like the guy? Was it Wilford Brimley?
Well, Wilford Brimley was the bad guy who gets his ass kicked by Tom Cruise, which is another reason.
Okay,
I like the movie.
I just wanted to make sure that I was really that was the right movie.
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I picturing Wilford Brimley?
Yeah. But anyway, Hackman, great. I think, as often is the case, I think Best Supporting Actor is one of the categories that you could easily open it up for 10 people.
Yeah. I mean, Sean Penn, I think, is a great choice. Carlito's Way, he was amazing there. I had a couple people. I had Frank Langella from Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Although that's another role. Like, I mean, he's just so angry, and he's just so like.
Right.
I mean, but there is something like that coiled spring thing that he brings to the role. But I'm not sure that that's a particularly difficult character to play necessarily. Right. But I don't want to discredit it. I think it was amazing. I also had Val Kilmer for Tombstone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and again, that's one of those sort of who's the guy from The Usual Suspects that sort of the Benicio del Toro.
Yeah.
Like, takes a role. Now, it's a little different because I think The Usual Suspects thing was like, this character doesn't do anything but have to die.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go way out on a limb and just play it in this totally bizarro world way. And it ended up working, and people sort of fell in love with it. And I don't think that that's entirely true when you're talking about a character like Doc in Tombstone, but I do think that Kilmer owned that role and did it that's the guy that everybody quotes. That's the memorable thing about that film to me. So I thought he was pretty amazing. And Sean Penn, Frank Langella, and Val Kilmer. Those were the people that I sort of wanted to mention.
Yeah. The other two, I think Ben Kingsley in Searching for Bobby Fischer.
Yeah.
Easily. And then two guys, they had tiny roles in the movie, but they're worth mentioning, were both Brad Pitt and Gary Oldman in True Romance.
Yeah.
They're both just really memorable characters. They're, maybe in it for 5 minutes. Actually, Gandolfini, too.
Yeah,
Gandolfini's great in that movie. So it's like, and just about, honestly, almost everybody in that movie could have been nominated for a supporting role.
100%. Yeah. That movie's chock full. You're right.
Dennis Hopper, Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
Everybody in that movie. Yep. Except Slater.
Well, if you want us, I might nominate him for Best Supporting. He did okay.
So, all right. So, who's your pick for Best Supporting Actor?
Even looking at the people I mentioned, I'm gonna have to go with your boy Leo. Like, he was great.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. But then again, is that always going to be the more impressive thing than just doing a quote unquote normal? I don't know. I'm not trying to be insulting, but if you're just playing an everyday person, and you're trying to do
not
that
a special
subtly,
needs person,
exactly. Do you discount that performance,
Right.
or is it just as impressive? Like there's a whole debate to be had there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's always that's always something that seems to just instantly get you a nomination.
Sure.
It's like, oh, handicap of any sort. Yeah,
I mean, I almost feel guilty for giving it to that character.
I'm gonna say you should.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because
to me it's Penn.
See, yeah, Penn's great, and I mean he was on my list. That I had to make sure that his name got brought up. Were he not actually nominated? I mean, 100% deserves it. Probably the most memorable thing about that movie for me. Like I said, I'm fond of the movie. I think there's a softer spot in my heart for Gilbert Grape. Yeah, as a movie, like a more fond remembrance of it somehow. And so I think there's a little bit of some sort of emotional, not terribly technical reason, but yeah, especially like. I almost don't even think of Leonardo DiCaprio or Leo as that kid. I mean, he was young. It was maybe my first introduction. Was it his first movie? No.
I think it was his first or his second.
So, I mean, there's almost no resemblance to me between that guy and the guy that did Inception or whatever. Like it's sort of, that character is a human being that I remember. Mm-hmm. And that's important. Yeah. I gotta, even though there's a certain practical side of me that says, you shouldn't reward him for that, but I'm gonna. It was good.
Okay.
Arnie, why don't you go into the basement?
I don't want to go down there, Gilbert.
Please?
No way, no way, no way. You go down there, Gilbert.
What's your problem? Gilbert? Hey.
Dad's in there. Ooh.
Shh.
Ooh. Dad's in there.
Shh. Arnie, shut up.
Please join us in the next episode for part 2 of our conversation with Rich Phelps.